March 17, 2026. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson stands at a podium in downtown Vancouver and delivers a number that lands like a hammer. The new bridge connecting Oregon and Washington across the Columbia River will not cost $6 billion. It will cost $14.4 billion. The price has nearly doubled. Ferguson's response, captured on camera, has already become legendary. He said, "We're building this damn bridge." But 6 months from now, on September 30th, a federal funding deadline could kill the project entirely. Today we're diving into the Interstate 5 bridge, the most expensive bridge replacement on the West Coast, and the question of whether it will ever actually be built. The Interstate Bridge crosses the Columbia River between Portland, Oregon, and Vancouver, Washington. It carries Interstate 5, the only continuous north-south interstate on the West Coast between Mexico and Canada. More than 140,000 vehicles cross it every single day, including 17,000 trucks. Cross-river commerce totals $30 million per day. The bridge is actually 2 parallel spans. The northbound bridge opened on February 14, 1917, making it 109 years old. The southbound span opened in 1958. Both rest on timber pilings driven into loose Columbia River sand. Vancouver Mayor Anne McInerney Ogle has a famous description for this engineering arrangement: pretzels in chocolate pudding. In a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, those pretzels would collapse. The lift span on the older bridge rises an average of 250 times per year, making it the only stoplight on Interstate 5 between Canada and Mexico. Before we continue, don't forget to click that subscribe button and like this video. It's the best way to support this channel. To understand why this project might fail again, you have to go back to 2013. The current effort is actually the second attempt to replace this bridge. The first was called the Columbia River Crossing. It ran from 2005 to 2013, and it burned through approximately $200 million in planning. Then it failed. The cause of death was a Washington State Senate bill introduced by Republican Senators Don Benton and Ann Rivers, who refused to authorize $450 million in matching funds. Their objection was light rail, specifically the planned extension of Portland's Max Yellow Line into downtown Vancouver. Clark County voters had rejected light rail in a 2012 ballot measure, and Republicans refused to fund any bridge that included it. Senator Benton went so far as to brag about schooling U.S. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood in a closed-door meeting. By the spring of 2014, Oregon Governor John Kitzhaber shelved the project entirely. The lessons of 2013 were supposed to inform the new attempt. Instead, the same fault lines have reopened. But the most damaging part of the story isn't the cost, it's how it was hidden. In January 2026, Portland economist Joe Courtright obtained internal documents through public records requests that showed the bridge program had already calculated the new cost at $13.6 billion. Months earlier, outgoing program administrator Greg Johnson had instructed staff in writing not to share preliminary numbers with anyone, whether preliminary, estimated, or final. The official announcement was carefully timed. It came 5 days after the Washington legislature adjourned and 11 days after Oregon's session ended. Even Democratic state senators called the timing deliberate. By then, Greg Johnson was gone. He had resigned at the end of 2025 after collecting $1.9 million in compensation over 5.5 years. His former employer, the consulting firm WSP, had received $116 million in IBR contracts. Total consultant spending on the project so far was $273 million. Critics argue that this was $273 million for basically the same project that failed in 2013. To paper over a massive funding gap, Oregon and Washington have split the project into pieces. The new core phase is priced at $7.65 billion and includes only the bridge itself, the immediate Interstate 5 connections, and the first leg of light rail. Of that, only $5.5 billion is committed, leaving a near-term funding gap of up to $2.2 billion. The full corridor improvements, including 7 interchange rebuilds and a new Hayden Island bridge, have been pushed all the way to 2045. The project's opponents are circling. Washington State Representative John Lay sent a formal 20-page letter to federal transportation officials, calling the bridge an outrageous boondoggle and a light rail project in search of a bridge. He has explicitly asked the Trump administration to claw back $2.1 billion in federal grants awarded under President Biden. The Trump administration has already canceled comparable transit projects, including $1.97 billion for a light rail extension in Chicago and $4 billion for California high-speed rail. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has publicly stated the administration is reviewing aid that can potentially be cut in Portland. The next 12 months will decide everything. On September 30th, 2026, a federal deadline requires Oregon and Washington to obligate $927 million from a Bridge Investment Program grant. Construction will not begin until 2028, raising serious questions about whether the project can even meet the requirement. Meanwhile, Vancouver City Council has revolted over a recent decision to terminate light rail at the Vancouver waterfront instead of continuing into downtown to Evergreen Boulevard, voting unanimously on April 13th, 2026 to oppose the change. Tolls are scheduled to start on the existing bridge in 2027, ranging from $1.55 to $4.70 per crossing, depending on time of day. Construction is supposed to begin in 2028, with the new bridge opening to traffic between 2032 and 2034. Light rail would not open until 2036. And the engineering ambition has actually shrunk to meet the budget. The new bridge will be designed to withstand a 500-year earthquake, not the maximum credible event of magnitude 9. For comparison, the Brent Spence Bridge corridor in Cincinnati broke ground on May 8, 2026. That project delivers a 10-lane bridge for $4.4 billion, less than 1/3 of what the Interstate 5 bridge will cost. It has no transit component, no decades of failed predecessors, and bipartisan support across 2 states. There is also one final twist. Oregon voters head to the polls on May 19, 2026, to vote on Measure 120, a referendum that could repeal $4 billion in transportation funding that Governor Tina Kotek pushed through last year. If it fails, Oregon may not be able to keep its $1 billion commitment to the bridge. The Columbia River Bridge, that connects 2 of the largest economies on the West Coast, is 109 years old, sitting on timber pilings, vulnerable to a magnitude 9 earthquake that could happen tomorrow. Replacing it will cost more than any bridge project in the history of the region. And after 15 years of planning, 2 governors, 3 federal administrations, and $273 million in consultants, the Interstate 5 bridge replacement might still die before a single shovel hits the ground. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the bridges shaping America. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.